Hi, everybody, and welcome to the second episode in the new series of the Stephen and Oliver Show, a podcast basically built on the 40 episodes that Stephen and I did together, but more appropriately combining our two brands together rather than just hosting it on my, selfishly, a single podcast series. Now, all joking apart, we're really excited because the first episode was all about getting you into the habit of listening to our content, give you a little bit of flavour of what's coming. This episode is titled How to Make Things Stick. And that's really important because we've said to you, we want you to stick to listening to all our episodes because of how much important information and really helpful stuff is in there. So, Stephen, when I say make it stick, what's the sort of thing that comes to mind to you, and what do you advocate to your clients and so forth about helping them get into good habits and keep doing things?
The first word that always hits me whenever I hear that line is consistency. Okay. And then the other word is routine. And I think so much of what we do in life, it's building that foundation. It's being able to build a routine and a structure that enables you to follow through. In so many cases in life, and I see this a lot with a lot of people that I mentee and a lot of people I come across, where they sometimes just find it difficult following that to its end. And then once it's ended, thinking that is the end. And actually it's not the end, it's the beginning. Someone said an amazing line to me the other day, which I'd forgotten about. And they said, it was really hard getting there, but it's now going to be harder staying there. And making it stick is all about staying there. And it's getting into that routine. It's having that fluidity. It's being able to follow things through and see through to the end. And it's also being able to, tap into that support mechanism in order that you can make things stick. Because sometimes it's not just about what you do. It's about what you can invest in others to do to help make it stick. And I have my my routines, and I know the 4 a.m. and the 5 a.m. club has been really popular, but it's not about 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. It's about you having a structure that you can work to. It's about you having some real key fundamentals that you can lean on. It's about having the right kind of signpost that enables you to know that you're going in the right direction, and not getting too hung up about, I'm not there yet. Because sometimes that might mean you're going to get there, but it might just take a little bit of time, and not losing that hope or faith in what you're doing. So making it stick is a great first episode, and it really allows us to start as we mean to go on. And that is, we want you to stick with us. We want to stick with you. And we really want you to get that momentum going. And it's all about that foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool. So some things that I already heard there that you were talking about was things like what I call accountability buddies. And we're going to come on to that in a short while, but they're sort of people that you can work with that hold you accountable, and you also hold them accountable to the actions you've agreed to do. We've talked about, consuming the right sort of content, and although you didn't say it, you kind of alluded to having the right people around you. There's a really important piece there about having supportive people around you and not negative people around you. So I think today that's what we'll cover, and then there's some specific things, some tools, some actionable takeaways which we're going to be really ramming down your throat over all of these episodes that are going to set you off on the right direction. So the first thing that I just talked about there was accountability buddies. So I have a take on that. It's something that was first shown to me by a guy called Neil Foley, who's my coach. So being a coach, I have someone in my corner all the time keeping me accountable, challenging me. He's now really referred to as my work dad, to be fair. Sorry, Neil, if you're listening. He's a little older than me. He's fairly experienced. But he first brought me into the idea of accountability buddies when he trialed some software. Didn't end up being very successful, but the principle of it was holding a group of about 10 people together through an online platform. That bit didn't quite work, but the principle of having somebody there that I would turn up to probably on a daily basis, maybe it was every few days, and say, this is what I'm going to do from now until such and such a time. And then you'd have to come back into that meeting and explain whether you had or hadn't done it, the successes you had or hadn't had, overdoing it, and feed that back to the group. And obviously some people turned up and they hadn't done anything and they felt a little bit embarrassed, so they didn't like that feeling, so they went away with a little bit more hope that they would move forward and do something, and more often than not they'd come back and do it. I myself, I don't like making an agreement and not sticking to it, so that made me do the things that I wanted to do. And it's something that we can all do. And I think that the most simplest example that most people would relate to is the wish to go to the gym. Now, I know for you it's not so hard as others because you absolutely love it. I'm not a regular gym goer myself, but there's certainly exercises and things that I want to do, and I have clients similarly. Now, there's many different ways you can get accountability buddies in there. They can be a friend, they can be somebody from work, they can be a PT. So yes, you can pay for that accountability. One of my clients is now absolutely smashing it at the gym because he's a PT 3 times a week. I know that's not attainable for everybody, but if it is, and if you have disposable income that you're spending on things that aren't getting you to the gym, if you're maybe spending them on things that are slightly less helpful, have a think about that. Because an accountability buddy is somebody who you are going to have to report to, ideally on a fairly regular basis, about what you said you would do and whether you've done it. And you're more than likely going to be holding them accountable to something of a similar standard, or maybe even an identical thing if you're going to be doing gym buddies. So is that something that you've used yourself in certainly in your fitness world, but in other examples as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Oliver. I always think sometimes if you're given another reason to do something, the likelihood is you're going to follow through. And think back to your younger days when you wanted to go and play out. There was a little thing you did, which was you told your mate, call for me around X time and I'll make sure that I can come out and we'll go out. If that person hadn't come round and called for you, you wouldn't have necessarily have gone out. And that's kind of what we're talking about. This is not here to hold you by the throat. It's meant to be enjoyable. It's something that you build into your life, into your lifestyle, that you can do over and over again. And I've been a gym goer for many, many years. When you know that there's someone going to be there with you, it makes sure that you turn up, because you know that you're not just going to be letting yourself down, you're going to be letting someone else down. So I do think this concept of having someone that holds you accountable and you hold them accountable, and that buddy theme, I think is just a great tool. And you can use it not just for the gym. I know people that go to book clubs. And I know that if they didn't go to the book club every week, they wouldn't read and consume the amount of books that they consume. But because they're part of a community and everyone turns up on that day and they reference the book and they go through it and they talk about the various bits, if you haven't read the book, you're not going to be part of the conversation. No different to, TV. And I'm smiling because I know there's some people that religiously watch certain programs.
Yeah.
And they know if they don't watch that program, they're not part of the conversation at work. Okay, so they're religiously watching it as a community because they want to have something to talk about. And I know I'm joking there, but you get, it's the same sort of thing. It's someone holding you accountable and you holding them accountable, so that you turn up and you do that thing.
Yeah.
And it's such a easy concept, but it absolutely works. I've used it for running. So if I've gone off, not been running for a very long time and I'm trying to get back on it, I'll use a buddy to say, look, can we start running again together? I think, I know there's been these couch to 5Ks. It's not a person, but it's a program that you're following, and the program is the buddy. And that program allows you to go from the couch to running a 5K. And it's a similar sort of thing, and it's holding you account. It says week 1 you do this, week 2 you do this, week 3 you do this, week 4 you do this. You follow it, and guess what? Week by week you get stronger, you get better, and all of a sudden you achieve it. Because you've had something that you can gravitate towards, be held accountable, and go and do it. So I think it's such as, think about all the things we'll talk about on the podcast. This is just one of the most simplest things that you can do. And the outcome can be life-changing for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the first actionable takeaway of the whole podcast show is this: find somebody else, and this is your real challenge, and be a bit sneaky here. Obviously pick something you want to do, ideally, but what I'd love is to hear the first challenge is to find somebody else who you think would benefit from this podcast and agree to talk about each episode. So we're going to be releasing these on a regular basis. Find that accountability buddy that you're going to say, we're going to listen to this by such and such a time. Talk about it. Because there is going to be gold in amongst these podcasts. And the real opportunity here is to use our first action point to really smash that home. Make the action, make it 2. If you want to do something else as well, make it 2. Make it listen to our podcast with that buddy or multiple buddies. It does work. And then the one thing that you two would like to do as well. So that's the first piece of gold. But that's not it. I think the second thing that's really important is that piece about surrounding yourself with the right people. Okay, so we've just talked about the importance of picking a buddy, somebody that you know is going to help hold you accountable. But your take on what the positive person versus the negative person and the impact of it. What would your version of that be? And I'll sort of give my 2 pennies worth afterwards.
Yeah, for me, I think this is not. It is a little bit about cheerleaderism, and it is a little bit about hypeism, in that you want to align yourself with someone that makes you feel happy, that you can talk with and open with, and you can share, because there's a certain amount of trust in this as well, which I think is really important. So for me, it's finding someone that you have some common ground with, that you have some common interests with, and that way you're more likely to really stick. It's more likely to sort of glue together, and then you can get into the right kind of routine. And then you're helping each other. And what's lovely about this buddy system is it's not about one person getting the benefit. And this is really important to say. Both people will get the benefits from this. And it's quite interesting. As you was talking there as well, I thought about my daughter, and she's been now swimming for 3 years. But when she first started swimming, I had to hold her accountable in the first instance to make sure that she got there on time, that she had all the equipment, and so forth and so forth. And then eventually she got to a point where she didn't need me as a buddy anymore, because actually she'd got into her own routine. So the nice thing about this buddy system is it might not be a buddy for life. The buddy might just help you to get the momentum going. And then eventually what happens is it becomes a way of life. It becomes what I call a lifestyle decision, and something that just happens ordinarily. And what I would say as well, on the reverse of this, and we'll talk about this in other podcast episodes, is don't be afraid to step outside of your normal circle if there's someone that has a common interest that you believe is going to be able to help you. And likewise, don't stay in your circle if the people that are in that circle aren't filling you with the right kind of accountabilities that you can move forward.
Yeah, and I think that's the real key bit. So I agree with everything you've said there, and that's really want to enhance on that final point as well. It's about, there's quite a lot of books and experts out there who say that you want to surround yourself with 5 key people, and those 5 people, although not so much that you want to surround yourself, sorry, I've got that slightly wrong, the closest 5 people to you, will have the biggest impact on your life. And I think a really good second exercise for you to do is think about who are the 5 closest people in your life, and how positively do they impact your life. Now, this is one of those first possible cold water moments that we might come across here, because often, not always, but often, that top 5 person does include a close person like a spouse or something similar, and it's not good. And the genuine, honest truth of it is things are never going to go really, really well if any of those 5 people in your close circle are a negative influence on your life. And there needs to be something that you do about it. Now, hopefully for most that isn't the case, but maybe there'll be a friend, and that's a little easier to handle, or maybe it's a colleague at work. If they are the closest person, but they are a bit of a drain, if they're the sort of person who's going to say, oh, you don't want to do that, you'll hate going to the gym, and they're just negative, they need to be removed in some capacity. I'm not saying it permanently, but something needs to change. So the negativity needs to change. So maybe some challenge of that individual, but also maybe just distancing yourself from them and things like that, limiting the time you spend with them, or give them the opportunity to take part in some of the activities and prove to them that it is positive. But that is really, really key. If you're surrounding yourself with mildly to incredibly negative people, this is going to be a lot harder. And if that accountability buddy you choose is someone you feel you're obliged to choose, but isn't the person you would choose, then also that's going to be challenging for you as well. So there's just a little bit of a more serious point about that, but it is really, really important, because those closest to you are going to have such an impact on your life. And obviously, I hope a lot of people listening here have incredibly good people surrounding them who are just going to take this idea and run with it. But if that's not you and you resonate with that, this is one of those moments to first of all have a think, and certainly second of all reach out to me or Stephen, and more than happily sort of talk you through some things you might like to trial to make some changes there. Because I'm not sort of suddenly suggesting that you need to tear everything up by any means, but perhaps there just needs to be some reflection.
Yeah.
The third thing, that I picked up from what you were talking about is habit. So your daughter's example there, it's now routine, it's habitual, isn't it? Every certain day, whenever it is, she'll go swimming, and she knows when you go swimming what she'll need, the equipment. It's like, it's natural, it's instinctive. Like me, when I play golf, I know what I've got to take. Whereas if someone new to golf looked at my golf bag and all the things that I take with me, there's no way they would think about that now. Whereas for me, it's like second nature. And I even get that weird nagging in my head when I walk out of the house and I'm like, no, I can't leave yet because I've forgotten something. And after a while, I realise it's like my watch or something along those lines. But I always listen to that little voice because they've always forgotten something when that nagging sort of doubt comes into my head. And this is where you can start taking in some really cool content. I know Stephen's potentially got some ideas on this as well, but I have a couple of books that I really recommend for this. In fact, I'll put them both up now. And will be links about these in the information below. And for those of you listening and not watching, I'm holding up the first book, which is Atomic Habits by a guy called James Clear. It's an exceptionally good book. It talks to you about the structure of habits and how to make them and how they work and how they stick. A little bit of sort of history and science behind it. And the other book that I'm now holding up to people not watching on the video is The Slight Edge by Jeff Ohlson. Now, if anybody has followed me for any time at all, you know that I bore people to tears about this book. Is it the world's greatest written book? Very many questions about that. But you cannot question the content at the core of it. And it will just get every single client of mine. There's two things that are guaranteed. They'll be asked to take a Clifton Strengths assessment, and they'll then be given a copy of The Slight Edge by Jeff Ohlson, and they'll be asked to read it. And the reason is it gets them into the mindset that I need them to be in and that they need to be in to benefit from this. Some people love the book. Some people find it a hard read, but every single person who's got through it will be in the right mindset. So there's two further actions. There's a couple of books. Both are now available on audio book as well. So download them or buy the individual hard copies and start reading a chapter of that book every single day. Make that a habit. And you will start noticing something. And when you read those books, you'll understand where we're coming from because they allude to it fairly early on. But in terms of content consumption around habits and making things stick, is there anything that you can recommend that's worked really well for you and clients?
Yeah, the thing I just want to put out there, it's very simple, but it's very effective. And that is to take a piece of paper, or if you want to use your keyboard, it's up to you, and just write down what are the things that you would like to do. And then next to that, write down, are there any limitations to doing that? And then write down, and who are the people in my community or my network that I could buddy up with? And the reason why that's a good process to do, I think sometimes what happens with this is we jump in feet first and we actually set ourselves up for failure. And the reason why a lot of these things don't work is because you jump in without giving it the reflection and the right amount of thought. And just doing those three things will enable you to come up with the right thing to do that's realistic and achievable, and the right person to help you with it, the right buddy. So spend some time. Don't just jump into it, because the likelihood is if you just jump into it, it won't be consistent. You'll start it, you'll go all guns blazing, and then eventually it won't continue. So those three things are really good ways to writing it down, thinking about it, and then you've almost done that hard work. And you've taken out the risk of you stopping doing whatever that thing is.
Yeah, perfect. So I feel there is a really good foundation episode for what we're talking about. I mean, the actions there are really quite straightforward. Find an accountability buddy and ideally team up with them to listen to each episode of this podcast. But that is not exclusive either. There are many other things that you can do. The second thing is review your circle, so those 5 people closest to you, and just see how supportive and positive they are. And the final 2 things are read some content that gets you into the right mindset and then plan it through effectively something that's not too dissimilar to something like the GROW model, where you're looking at what it is you want to achieve, the reality of that situation, and who you would like to partner with and support you to get that done. That there is a recipe for success. And if you did some work on that over the course of the next week before our next episode, you will be starting in the right direction. If you download or buy those books, so a download you'll have today, book you can probably get it next day. You're going to have 7 or 6 chapters down in a book. You're going to have multiple actions that you want to start written down in a goal. You'll have potentially identified more than one accountability buddy for that thing. And you'll have potentially had a look at the circle that you've got and maybe had a little change. Maybe look towards people that you would like to spend more time with that you haven't. That's a lot. And that's going to be really impactful for you. So for me, I think that's an excellent place to start and also finish an episode. So really, as we've always done, I think we'll keep the trend going. Stephen, any final thoughts from you on that?
I would just like to say it's been amazing having the second show. And I truly want to stick to our strapline. That is, we want to help you help yourself. It's all about help. SOS.
SOS indeed. See you on the next episode.